Hi, this is Denise, reading to you the Tuesday, April 15th, 2025 edition of the Fall River Herald News. We begin with the weather. Today, a few morning showers, a high of 64 with a low of 37. On Wednesday, windy and cooler, a high of 53 with a low of 33. On Thursday, warmer, a high of 62 with a low of 33. On Friday, increasing cloudiness, a high of 62 with a low of 43. And on Saturday, showers around, breezy, a high of 66 with a low of 40. In the lottery, the numbers game dated Monday, April 14th, midday, 4847. Again, 4847. The numbers game evening, 5691. Again, 5691. Mass cash for Monday, April 14th, 7, 8, 16, 21, 28. Again, 7, 8, 16, 21, 28. Powerball for Monday, April 14th, 3, 20, 30, 52, 62 with a Powerball of 1. Again, 3, 20, 30, 52, 62 with a Powerball of 1. And Lucky for Life, dated Monday, April 14th. 10, 11, 23, 35, 40 with a Lucky Ball of 13. Again, 10, 11, 23, 35, 40 with the Lucky Ball of 13. On the front page, City targets school transportation. Fall River looks to cut costs with $16 million budget, by Emily Sherney, the Herald News, USA Today Network, Fall River. Fall River Public Schools has needed to accommodate students arriving to the district at the same time it contends with increasing expenses, especially the cost of transporting students to and from school. A joint meeting between the City Council and the school committee on April 8th was intended to spark dialogue between members of the school board and counselors, and it lived up to its promise when it came time to unpack public school system's budget line items, including the $13 million transportation budget, with additional costs that add up to $15,800,000 set aside to solve busing problems. Transportation costs are reported on the school side of a dual ledger between the city and school budgets, but the city remains responsible for most of it. In 2021, it cost roughly $8 million to bus students to school. 5 years later, those costs have nearly doubled. Each year, the school board has been short of its budget goals, and each year, the city has stepped in to provide the difference. City councilors sought to scrub the cost of budget items not yet considered net schooling spending, and therefore is not included in the minimum required amount set forth by Chapter 70 of Massachusetts General Laws each school district must spend annually. The district covers the cost of transportation using a mix of grant and operational funding. I am horrified at the cost of transportation, school committee member Thomas Corey said at the meeting. Transportation that fails to get students to school translates to poor attendance, he said. A breakdown of the cost of the budget. The meeting revealed that $15 million expense was fed with $13.1 million in operating money, $1.4 million in McKinney-Vento Homeless Education Act funding, and $1.4 million in Circuit Breaker Program funding. Of the amount, $750,000 was considered in flux by the school department's chief operating officer, Kenneth Pacheco, who said the money would be requested should bus routes remain their usual length, or more students fill school bus seats during fiscal 2026. When asked if he thought $750,000 was sufficient, Pacheco said, "I hope so." Kevin Almeida, the school department's chief financial officer, expects the state to reimburse between $1.4 million and $1.5 million to the district and a portion of out-of-district transportation. Some members of the school board were prepared to ask the city council for more money. About $3 million more, said Colin Diaz, sparking pushback from councilors. Pacheco admitted that due to high rates of ongoing construction, some roadways are impassable for buses. More bus routes have been added in recent years. A total of 4 busing vendors have been used historically, Pacheco said, and 30 buses currently run door-to-door routes, which is not the most economical option and often includes serpentine turns. Door-to-door buses have open seats. Drivers, if they make more stops to fill the empty seats, run out of time before school starts. Distances and routes will need to change, but it won't impact students who currently take the bus. New methods of measuring the distance from school will only apply to new students. School department has 2 options to lower transportation costs. There's a few techniques, said Pacheco, when discussing what could be done to combat rising costs of several busing vendors and increase the preschoolers now taking the bus. School bus routes need to be remapped, curtailing the length of the routes and ride time for students. In addition of preschoolers now taking the bus have increased, and 10 new buses with built-in car seats to accommodate younger students who need them, and electric buses awaiting an inspection by the Department of Motor Vehicles will be placed on the road. Fall River's once walkable neighborhood schools have been replaced by mega schools, said Pacheco, that have more distance between them. Superintendent Dr. Tracy Curley said there will definitely be plans to redistrict schools, and in school year 2027, we anticipating making some changes, which may include moving some of the boundaries where students are assigned to school. The way grades are configured within schools, many may result of changes with likelihood of adding K-8 school. Moving special programs that could live anywhere geographically in the city may take, especially programs that require transportation, closer to that time. Families in the community will be invited to chime in. The city wants to cut costs, but schools want to keep what they have. The city council and school committee, spearheaded by Cadby, voted to send a letter to Governor Maura Healey, Massachusetts Speaker of the House Ronald Mariano, and local delegates to lobby for transportation costs to be eligible for and included within net school spending for gateway cities, allowing the city to trim state and federal funding, City Councilor Cliff Ponte said. In a great tug of war between city and school spending, shaving even $2 million off of transportation costs could save that money for the city's operating budget. I'm not saying that schools don't need it, to which City Councilor Sean E. Cadamine agreed that the council has always backed school funding where required. The $13 million in transportation costs represents roughly 5% of net school spending. But if the city deflects those costs and lumps it under the allocated net school spending, it would be a cut, said Pacheco, and a devastating one at that, Curley added. We would see a huge cut to our budget. Curley struck back, saying, I question whether people really understand what they are voting for. The next front page story, Cafe and Bakery opens in old Route 177 shop, by Ashley Schuler, the Herald News, USA Today Network. Westport. When Countryside Market closed this past September, owners teased that the Route 177 shop wouldn't remain empty for long. Exciting plans for its next chapter were already in the works, and roughly 7 months later, they finally came to fruition. April 10th marked the dawn of a new day at 549 American Legion Highway as Till Dusk Cafe and Bakery officially opened its doors at the popular Westport spot. Caitlin Miranda, former employee at Countryside Market, has returned to her usual spot behind the counter, this time at the helm of operations. It's something I've always been interested in, said the 23-year-old Westport resident. I grew up baking and cooking. So when the opportunity came about last fall to share that passion through her own venture, Miranda said she took it. What's on the menu at Till Dusk? Till Dusk is described as a cafe, bakery, and deli that seems to be following in the same vein as its predecessor as a go-to for breakfast, lunch, or dinner offerings and treats, all made fresh in the house. According to Miranda, each day will be a new beginning at Till Dusk's in terms of the menu. I'm doing more of a moving menu, Miranda said. Early morning offerings include breakfast sandwiches made to order and fresh baked bagels and bread. For lunch and dinner, they'll offer a build-your-own sandwich option as well as their own featured sandwiches each day. Opening day highlights include a Portuguese marinated pork, the Godfather, the version of an Italian, and the Country Club, which Miranda described as a homage to the former Market's Countryside Club, made with turkey, bacon, lettuce, tomato, avocado, and house-made honey mustard. They'll also be serving up different soups on rotation. Opening day featured Portuguese kale soup, but her lineup will also include tomato basil, chicken noodle, minestrone, and more. Cold brew coffee and flavors such as cinnamon bun and other caffeinated brews await all those in need of a pick-me-up, in addition to a dessert case stuffed with tempting treats. Till Dusk's first customers were greeted with a spread of sweets that included dirt pie, banana bread pudding, gooey cinnamon rolls, cake pops, fresh-baked cookies individually wrapped and ready to go, and cupcakes in an array of flavors from classic chocolate and vanilla to cinnamon roll, carrot, fruity pebbles, and chocolate lava cake. Godfather and specialty cupcakes a hit. The new business got a boost from the Countryside Market's still active Facebook account calling on the community to show Till Dusk their support on opening day. Today is the day. Please stop in and check out the tasty offerings. Katie has been working hard to bring her new business to life. Let's give her a warm welcome and support her new small business. And show up as they did as Miranda tended to a busy crowd Thursday at their soft opening Wednesday, April 9th. We were slammed both times, she said. I wasn't expecting to be as busy as we have been. It's a great thing. So far, customers' favorites have been the Godfather sandwich, a hit from the get-go that sold out the first 2 days, as well as her specialty cupcakes and trifles. Miranda said she plans to expand the menu as things get rolling. When can I visit? Till Dusk Cafe and Bakery is located at 549 American Legion Highway in Westport. Hours are 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Thursday, 6 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Friday, and 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday. For more information or to get a look at some of their offerings, visit their Facebook page. The next story. Woman faces charges of holding teens at gunpoint. By J.D. Golub, Florida Today, USA Today Network. It was a sight that left Mike Jones sick to his stomach. There live on his phone was his son lying in the grass as a woman clutching a long pellet gun screamed, accusing the 15-year-old athlete and his 13-year-old friend of trespassing in backyards of a residential area in Melbourne, Florida. The woman holding the gun, Donna Marie Elkins, 59, was later arrested on 2 counts of aggravated assault without intent to kill and 2 counts of false imprisonment. Brevard County Sheriff's deputies say she held the teenagers who were fishing in a pond nearby her property against their will with a weapon. I actually could hear it all via FaceTime. I was trying to talk my son through it, Jones said. I told him, just do what she's telling you. The scariest thing is knowing that your son is in immediate harm and you're watching it. There was a moment when she said that she would blow their brains out. It was just very hard to watch. Before 8 p.m., March 28, sheriff's deputies were called to Elkins' residence to investigate a disturbance, records show. Deputies said the property in question did not belong to Elkins. Elkins told Florida Today, part of the USA Today network, that she was frightened and that other instances of people walking on her property have been reported before. In this case, she had called 911 dispatchers to report finding the 2 boys fishing on her property and told dispatchers that she had petrified them, arrest reports show. One of these kids had walked up to my screened-in enclosure. It looked like he was carrying something black, but it turned out to be a cast on his arm. Video captured live by Jones' son as the incident unfolded shows the boys were lying on the ground as Elkins shouted. Elkins told police that she scared the boys by holding them at bay with the pellet gun purchased at a tractor store. The teens ordered to not move told arriving deputies that they were afraid for their lives. Her husband, who says his wife is disabled, can be seen on the video walking up and taking the pellet gun away from her. Deputies determined that the pond in which the boys were fishing is actually about 30 feet away from the woman's property. Elkins, however, said that anyone walking to the fishing area would have to pass through several yards. Elkins was handcuffed and booked in the Brevard County Jail. She was later released on $25,000 bond. I've been judged so badly, lied on, Elkins said. People are just ripping me apart. I feel horrible, but I was freaked out. We've had homeless people back here, and we do have a sign out that says, no fishing. I'm extremely sorry, but I wouldn't be walking in anybody's backyard in today's world. Jones, however, said that he hoped justice would be served. The incident shook the boys and raised questions about property rights and the appropriate response for residents concerned about the potential for trespassing. We've reached the halfway point of today's reading of the Fall River Herald News, dated Tuesday, April 15th. There are no obituaries listed today. Back to our stories. NTSB helicopter and crash lacked flight recorders by Theo Nguyen, USA Today. New York Helicopter Tours, the company involved in the deadly helicopter crash in New York, is shutting down its operations immediately, the Federal Aviation Administration announced. Additionally, the FAA will be launching an immediate review of the tour operator's license and safety record, the FAA said in a statement on April 13th. Divers from the New York Police Department continued recovery operations on April 13th, searching for parts of the helicopter, including the main rotor, gearbox, tail rotor, and a large portion of the tail boom. Meanwhile, National Transportation Safety Board investigators have begun evaluating the helicopter's flight control system at a secure location, according to the safety agency. Parts that have already been recovered, such as the cockpit, cabin, horizontal stabilizer finlets, the vertical fin, and a portion of the tail boom, were sent to the NTSB laboratories in Washington for inspection. In an update on April 12th, the NTSB said no video or camera recorders have been recovered from the Bell 206 helicopter. The agency added that none of the electronic systems and equipment on the aircraft have recorded information that would help the investigation. The aircraft, whose passengers included an executive at tech company Siemens, his wife, and 3 children, crashed into the Hudson River near New Jersey City, New Jersey on April 10th. Video of the incident showed the helicopter plunging into the water, followed moments later by a detached rotor. Divers recovered the victim as well as the pilot from the submerged helicopter. 4 people were declared dead at the scene, while 2 others died later after they were transported to nearby hospitals. The crash renewed safety concerns about the aerial tourism industry. Helicopter tours in New York have been controversial, and some flights have turned deadly, USA Today reported. Earlier, on April 13th, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer urged the FAA to immediately revoke the company's operating certificate. Schumer also called on the FAA to increase regulations for helicopter tours, including expanding ramp inspections, surprise safety inspections at helicopter tour companies across New York City. There is one thing for sure about New York City helicopter tour companies. They have a deadly track record, Schumer said at a news conference. It is usually the companies, not the pilots, that are openly manipulating FAA rules, cutting corners, and could well be putting profits over people. Records obtained by USA Today showed that New York Helicopter Charter Incorporated was previously involved in 2 safety incidents in 2013 and 2015. Officials have not determined the cause of the April 10th crash, but aviation experts previously told USA Today that the video of the crash appears to indicate a catastrophic failure of the helicopter's rotor. The next story. Order may affect Black History Museum. Defenders say facility preserves heritage by Deborah Barfield Berry, USA Today, Washington. Adam Sanchez remembers tears streaming down a student's face as a high school class left the lower level of the National Museum of African American History and Culture a few years ago. Everyone understood why he had tears in his eyes, said Sanchez, a former high school history teacher. Sanchez gathered his students there on a field trip from New York City in a quiet space to reflect on the exhibits on slavery in the Middle Passage. It was such a powerful experience for all of them, he said. The Smithsonian Institution Museum opened with much fanfare 9 years ago and has been lauded for its mission to share the good and the bad of the Black experience in the U.S., including slavery. Now it's also in the sights of President Donald Trump, who called its work part of a widespread effort to rewrite our nation's history. Museums in our nation's capital should be places where individuals go to learn, not be subjected to ideological indoctrination or divisive narratives that distort our shared history, Trump said in a recent executive order about parks and museums. It's not clear what Trump's directive will mean for the National African American Museum, if anything. However, Kevin Young stepped down as museum director April 4th, a little more than a week after Trump's executive order. The museum, which hosted 1.6 million visitors in 2024, serves as a cornerstone in the preservation of American history, a number of community leaders and organizations said in its defense. From slavery to civil rights to the cultural innovations that continue to shape the world, the museum ensures these stories are not forgotten, denied, or politicized, the National Council of Negro Women said in a statement. Anything under the sun is susceptible, said Vide Cold-Robertson, executive director of the Association of African American Museums. It would be a travesty to not have your culture-specific museums anywhere in the country, but definitely in the nation's capital. In 2017, during the same week as Trump's first inauguration, Sanchez took 15 students from the Harvest Collegiate High School on the field trip to the African American Museum. Sanchez had taught classes on slavery and Reconstruction and another on the civil rights movement. I knew that the museum was going to bring the history to life in a way you couldn't in the classroom, said Sanchez, now managing editor of Rethinking Schools, a social justice teaching publication, and it certainly did. Nakaya Rowe, then a student on the trip, said it gave her a sense of strength and pride. The museum highlights the deep, complex history of African Americans and their contributions to the country, she wrote in a recent note shared with USA Today. And she said it plays a crucial role in educating society about the rich, complex, and often overlooked history of African Americans. Schools have long overlooked important aspects of African American history, said Brian Stevenson, founder of the Equal Justice Initiative, a human rights organization pushing to end mass incarceration. The organization has a museum and a sculpture park in Montgomery, Alabama, dedicated to telling the story of the African American experience in America. I don't think schools have ever done a great job of teaching people about many aspects of our history, he said. That's why you go to the Smithsonian. That's why you go to spaces that are trying to fill those gaps. In Trump's recent order, restoring truth and sanity to American history, he complained the Smithsonian has come under the influence of divisive race-centered ideology. This shift has promoted narratives that portray American and Western values as inherently harmful and oppressive. Those teachings make America look bad and undermine its achievements, Trump said. Trump and some conservatives have said, we will restore the Smithsonian Institution to its rightful place as a symbol of inspiration and American greatness, the order reads. It calls for Vice President J.D. Vance to join in a role with the Smithsonian Board of Regents to help map out new policy. It prohibits spending on exhibits or programs that degrade shared American values, divide Americans based on race, or promote programs or ideologies inconsistent with federal law and policy. Despite its millions of visitors, the African American History Museum is singled out in Trump's order. During his first term, Trump was one of them. I pledge to do everything I can to continue the promise of freedom for African Americans and for every American, he said then. Lonnie Bunch, the museum's founding director and now secretary of the overall Smithsonian Institution, has said that the museum highlights not only tragic events, but the joys and culture of the African American experience. I'm proudest of the fact that we were able to go from no collections to 40,000 amazing artifacts that can tell the story of America through an African American lens, Bunch told USA Today in a 2016 interview months before the museum opened. The museum houses other original items, including a slave cabin and the shawl of the abolitionist Harriet Tubman. The next story, Declawing Cats is now illegal in Massachusetts, by Seth Jacobson, USA Today Network, New England USA Today Network. A law ending the practice of declawing cats and a law prohibiting the sale of dogs and cats under 8 weeks old went into effect in Massachusetts on April 8th. The law could help keep animals out of shelters that are already dealing with capacity problems, according to the MSPCA, Engel, Massachusetts Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals. The Bay State now joins New York and Maryland in banning the declawing of cats, according to the MSPCA Engel. The cat declawing bill was sponsored by Senator Mark Motke. The MSPCA Engel stated in a release that declawing a cat is akin to amputating a person's fingertips at the first knuckle and frequently causes serious pain and behavioral problems for the cats involved. Beyond the pain of recovering and healing, it is estimated in roughly half of declawed cats experience complications after the surgery. Sometimes cats declawing leaves cats with pain that can contribute to behavioral issues that lead families to choose to surrender their cats, according to the MSPCA. What does the other new law state? An act relative to the humane protection of animals prohibits the sale of puppies and kittens under 8 weeks old, according to a release from the MSPCA. The bill was initially sponsored by Senator John Vallis along with Representatives Ted Phillips and Jessica Giano. Selling animals at such a young age can result in behavioral and health problems that can make animals more difficult to adopt, creating further challenges for already overcrowded shelters. The MSPCA added that the measure also bans the sale of animals in parks, outdoor markets, and parking lots, which previously resulted in some consumers buying sick animals with no recourse for those who sold them. And we end our reading today with the Dear Abby section. Dear Abby, I'm a single man with no siblings. My elderly father passed away 8 months ago. My mother is now in hospice with a life expectancy of weeks to months. My parents have lived long and productive lives, and I am proud of both of them. We have always been very close. Since their terminal illnesses, I've managed to function fairly well. My problem is with certain triggers. For example, I can no longer go to the beach because I always remember my father's voice welcoming me home when I returned. The worst one is when people see my childhood photos and say, "Your parents must have loved you a lot." I know these people mean well, but I can't help grieving over the bond I had and have lost with my parents. I plan to seek counseling, but I would appreciate any advice you would have about reducing the effect of these triggers. Dear son, please accept my sympathy for the loss of your father. You may need help coping with the pain of losing him, as well as dealing with your mother's sad prognosis. When a loved one dies, there are, of course, bittersweet memories. Managing them is an individual process. If you haven't joined a grief support group, I urge you to find one. If the group setting doesn't provide enough help for the overwhelming emotions you are feeling, a licensed psychotherapist can offer more support. The people helping your mother with her hospice care surely can suggest some resources for you. Please don't put it off. Start now. Dear Abby, how long would you give your partner to get a full-time job? What if that partner was helpful in other areas of the household, brought in rental income from a home he owned, and helped with the kids? I am in a predicament. My spouse has been working with an adjunct professor since we met and has remained in that career for 17 years without benefits or a salary that can support us. We have children now, and I've been working my tail off for more than 10 years to provide a lifestyle for our family. Would you let your husband continue in his dream of adjunct professor or make him get an additional part-time job to bring in more income? Dear Exhausted, would leaving your husband improve your lifestyle? You and your husband should consult a financial advisor and discuss your situation. From what you have written, your husband doesn't sit around doing nothing. He may be doing his best to contribute in other ways. If the numbers don't add up, it is possible he may need to do something more to generate income. But a word of caution, do not issue an ultimatum unless you are ready to follow through. We've reached the end of our reading for today, April 15th, 2025, of the Fall River Herald News. Have a great day.